Okay, let's go ahead and evaluate g of negative 1 in this equation. First thing we do is rewrite it by placing this negative 1 everywhere we see x. So, g of negative 1 would equal negative 1 squared minus 5 times negative 1 plus 2. So now we evaluate. G of negative 1 would equal negative 1 squared is like negative 1 times negative 1. A negative times a negative is positive. 1 times 1 is 1. Negative 5 times negative 1. Negative times a negative is positive. 5 times 1 is 5. And then finally we add the 2. Based off of order of operations, we add left to right, just like we read a book. So g of negative 1 would be 1 plus 5 is 6. 6 plus 2 would be 8. So g of negative 1 would be 8. Now let's solve this for g of negative 2. G of negative 2. What I'm going to do is I'm going to replace in the first time I wrote it, I'm going to replace everywhere I have this negative 1, I'm going to replace it with this negative 2. So g of negative 2 equals negative 2 squared minus 5 times negative 2 plus 2. So g of negative 2 would equal negative 2 squared. This right here means the base number times itself twice for squared. Negative times a negative is positive. 2 times 2 is 4. So negative 2 squared would be positive 4. Minus 5 times negative 2. A negative times a negative will be positive. 5 times 2 is 10. And then we drop down our 2. Just bring this guy straight down into our equation. So now, according to order of operations, we add left to right. So 4 plus 10 is 14. 14 plus 2 would be 16. So g of negative 1 would be 8, but g of negative 2 is 16. G of negative 1 equals 8. G of negative 2 equals 16. So here are our final answers.